DDG episode 99. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
You'd think we're at 99. That means we have a week to prepare for 100, that we would figure out even the day we're recording, but that's still up in the air.
Yeah, because you go on vacation, I go back on overnights for a week, which sucks because I almost just got back on a regular schedule. But it is what it is, and it's one less week of dealing with customers because I kind of forgot how
The worst part of the job?
how irritating they can be sometimes.
Yeah.
But and it's still September. It's kind of like what I would consider mid to late September, and it's still like 85 degrees. This is getting stupid. I know we talk about the weather a lot, but
Yeah. I'm sure there's some people like, oh my god, they're gonna talk about the weather before God of War. Yes, we are. It's 60 right now. I have windows open. I was so happy.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's 75. So hopefully whatever you have usually ends up over here soon, because I'll talk about it a little later, but I've been doing a lot of what I've been calling like adulting the last week to 10 days, and some of that involves a lot of hard work, and I don't want it to be hot. All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that has posted for 99 consecutive weeks Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time on podcast services. We are not doing anything super special for 100 other than it's going to mean that I have to fumble through the intro of saying a triple-digit number instead of a double-digit number, so we'll see how that goes. But we have tons of places you can follow us and interact with us through our community. All of that is linked in the show notes. We do stream live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. Tuesdays have been pretty consistent. Next week won't be Tuesday, as I say that, so it'll be, but typically it's Tuesday evenings at around 5:30 Eastern Time. On twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where we are a Twitch affiliate, so you can sub to us through Amazon and Twitch linked together if you have that ability, or you can just sub to us directly if you want to. Again, it is September for Twitch, which gives you 20% off your first sub as well as gifted subs. So any of that support that you guys want to give or are able to give is always appreciated. A lighter news week, but I'm sure we'll have some interesting conversations around some of these stories, and I'm gonna throw it back to Michael.
Yeah, I was digging around for news stories. It's one of those things that has helped us out at recording Tuesdays. Is there's usually something by Monday or Tuesday morning that'll drop, but not a ton of stuff. So we're gonna start off with a rumor. Usually don't do rumors unless it's been sourced by multiple outlets. So this one luckily was sourced by a YouTuber I wasn't too familiar with, but also Video Games Chronicles and Kotaku. Quantic Dream are apparently working on a Star Wars game. So as you know, Star Wars license has left EA, though not fully, because there will be a Fallen Order 2, I believe. But this game has...
The exclusivity has left EA.
Yeah, the exclusivity is left EA, so EA is still working on it. But this is Quantic Dream. I don't know if it's just independent Quantic Dream or if they're going to be working with a publisher, though LucasArts is technically a publisher, so they could finance and publish this. But this has been in development apparently for about 18 months. And it is actually going to stray away from the traditional Quantic Dream style game that we're used to. So it's not going to be all QuickTime events, though I wouldn't be surprised if we still see QuickTime events, because even in most third-person action-adventure games, there is some form of QuickTime events. Mm-hmm. But this is going to be potentially more action-focused, and it's going to be open world. So completely different style of game than we're used to seeing from Quantic Dream. And as I mentioned earlier, so EA's got Fallen Order out there. Ubisoft has Massive working on a Star Wars game. Aspyr is remaking Knights of the Old Republic. So now we have like 4 Star Wars games coming from 4 different companies. So we're getting to the point where we're probably gonna have like a Star Wars game every year for the foreseeable future, which didn't work out too well for the movies the last time they were trying to have Star Wars movies every year. But at least there's different takes happening.
Yeah, I feel like these are, like as you just mentioned, like these we at least know what Fallen Order will be in terms of like gameplay style. The team that's working on the Ubisoft Massive team that's working on their Star Wars game is the developers of the Division series. So I would be led to believe it'll be a little bit third person covery, just because of like what they know and how their engine's built. I mean, that might be a stretch on my part, but I don't see why they would want to change from that. And then as well as we know what the Knights of the Old Republic will be. So there's some protection there. I have some concerns about Quantic Dream working on a Star Wars game, partially that all begin and end with David Cage. He likes to kind of do his own thing. In his own way, some people and he definitely has a love or hate. The consumers have a love or hate relationship with it. I know for the most part, you personally are not a Cage fan.
I feel like he always has good ideas, but he just doesn't like deliver on those ideas from like a video game perspective.
And then my other concern is what Quantic Dream is known for. Is not at all what I would want on a Star Wars game, nor do I think it's what Lucas would want on a Star Wars game, Lucas Films or Lucas Games or whatever you want to call them, because I think they're pretty set in their ways of their lore and the foundation of the Star Wars franchise and how it functions, and an overarching decision-making story branch doesn't sound appealing to me in that world.
So the only like area I could see like a David Cage Quantic Dream game fitting is in the prequels era, because if you remember like those first two prequels, there was a lot of like political shit happening, a lot of like, you know, the government and all that dialogue filled stuff. Like the first two movies in the prequel were kind of boring for a lot of people. Like there was action, but there was a lot of like chess games happening between all the other fucking characters in that thing, like the Parliament aspect. Maybe Quantic Dream can fit in there if they're going to be a little more dialogue heavy, but I don't know if anyone would want a dialogue heavy Star Wars game, especially right now, because like Star Wars with the recent stuff, like they started kind of shaky with like the new trilogy, but then Mandalorian kind of bailed them out, and I just wonder what type of Star Wars we're going to end up getting from Quantic Dream. Like, obviously it's going to have to stick with the lore in terms of the current lore. Like, I feel like they're not giving people too much, like, free roam of what they can handle. I'm just hoping it's not the Mandalorian game that people assume that you know, Disney wants to cash in on. Because I would kind of hope the Mandalorian game would go to massive. Because I feel like the mercenaries stuff fits with massive. But so I'm hoping, like, I don't even know what characters you would want to give to Quantic Dream, because I feel like with their track record, you wouldn't give them some mainline names to work with.
Whether you liked Fallen Order or didn't like Fallen Order, whether you liked The Division or didn't like The Division, those at their core foundation, there's always like really good positive things you can find out from the games, whether it's gameplay or mechanics or any of those things. Like I mentioned, the love-hate with the David Cage games is either the story and the pacing and how everything has been built in his multiple games. I mean, we're talking Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Detroit Become Human. There's something else in there too, right?
So there's their three partnered games with PlayStation, which were the three you named, and then before they partnered with PlayStation, it was Indigo Prophecy.
Okay.
But like their three PlayStation games, that was a 3-game contract they had with Sony.
Okay. But and the tech that he tries to push, and then also like what I feel like, and I could be misremembering, but the amount of development time it takes to make his games, and it's just this to me looks like it has a recipe for disaster. Maybe like if somebody's publishing it, if he's got a multi-platform deal with a publisher, like I don't know, like Activision. I'm just putting it out there. Activision doesn't really have anything in terms of longevity, and I would sure they would love to get into the Star Wars game. But so this is just a reach. If like Activision is publishing and wanting him to do something, they would definitely add resources, which they've been known to do, to help flesh out what they really want. And then they're using his studio for the uniqueness of the game that they want, and then they're using everybody else to make it to help fill in the gaps. Like that's a possibility. Again, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I think if it was a big publisher, I think it would have already leaked by now, though. Like in terms of like from an earnings call or something like that. So if he's self-publishing a Star Wars game, okay, you had a really good lunch with somebody at Disney. Like,
or the scale is way smaller.
Yeah.
Like this makes sense from a Quantic Dream standpoint. Is if they're not partnered with Sony anymore, they have to go with a licensed game if they want to like continue with their current budgets. I would imagine they have to be working with some publisher to just be able to get a meeting with
yeah.
Star Wars or Disney, and I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into like, yeah, they had a good relationship with Sony and Sony is looking for stuff, or they maybe talked with like Epic or something.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any possibility that Microsoft is dabbling into this and holding something for Game Pass or exclusive to their side? That's a third party exclusive?
If it's Microsoft, I think we would probably find out this week because Microsoft is usually like if something leaks, they just get out in front of it.
Right.
Why most other publishers will just ignore it until they're ready to announce it. I can kind of see that. I can also see like we'll talk about them in a second. I can also see like THQ Nordic since they're like working with like Aspire, I believe, or they're publishing some of the Star Wars remakes that are been released on like limited run. So I can see maybe like a THQ Nordic taking like a big leap of like, hey, let's throw some money into Star Wars and go from there. Because I just don't, based on their track record, they have been a very successful studio, but based on all the grief that their games usually come with, that Lucas wouldn't be like, yeah, let's just partner with them one-on-one. It would have to be someone else coming in there to just do something.
Yeah, and to be fair, I have my concerns, like I've expressed before. I have my concerns about Massive, the Ubisoft studio, working on now supposedly 3 games: the Star Wars game, the Avatar game. Those 2 are confirmed.
Is them right?
Yeah. And then there's something with the Division, whether it's Division Heartland, which is being worked on a little bit by Red Storm, but you know that Massive is still going to be involved in that, as well as whatever existing content that they haven't talked about for the Division 2 going forward. So there's definitely concerns from my standpoint there and I'm always concerned about studios overreaching or stretching themselves too thin. Sometimes, most of the time, to my own detriment, that it doesn't turn out to be anything terrible. So hell, like I said last week, I didn't think Star Wars or Spider-Man and Wolverine to be in their own like cinematic universe in the video games, and then they totally came out and said it that they could.
Yeah. They're like, yep, nope, they're connected somehow. Yeah, I will be interested to see now that this is like leaked. Though it's weird, like I think Quantic Dream just settled their lawsuit that they were having, their misconduct thing. I think they won that trial, so I'm wondering if maybe they don't announce it within the next couple weeks because that's going to be their news cycle, or this is a perfect time for them to announce it and then it buries whatever settlement or lawsuit they had to do because people will just be talking about David Cage working on a Star Wars game.
I do agree with you about the concern about possible Star Wars fatigue in the video game world, though.
Yeah, especially we're probably going to hit that point where we'll have a 4 or 5 year stretch where we're just going to have Star Wars game each holiday. Rogue 77 just cracked me in the chat. They're because again the movies hit that point where people were
that's enough. Like, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah. To where by the time the Han Solo movie came out, that movie was fine, but people were just so fucking tired they didn't even want to give that movie a chance.
And to be fair, I think Marvel would have been on that same pace of where people have been like, okay, these are good or great. You know, like I think they would have been fine. Like the Star Wars stuff probably wasn't for most people, but I think the cadence that Marvel was coming out at was going to cause fatigue automatically, and then the pandemic, air quote, saved them. You know? Especially
after they like finished the story they've been building to for 10 years to where people were kind of just like, I don't really care anymore. Yep. And then they were able to like space things out a little bit better after that.
Yeah.
But we'll probably find out more about this over the next couple of weeks, or Lucas will come out and be like, no, this isn't a thing that's happening.
Well, that would be, before you go on, that would be super interesting to see if Disney comes out and says, we're not working with him. Like, you know, like in terms of like, we don't want to work with him, or, you know, like, I guess like they don't want to, like you said, maybe they don't want to be affiliated with him because good, bad, or indifferent, whatever the results of that was, that's not even winning is not good PR.
Yeah. And also you might have partners at EA, Ubisoft being like, hey, can you tell people they're not working on something because we're working on something and it's going to interfere with it. Just because I'm sure Ubisoft, every time another company announces they're working on a Star Wars project, is not thrilled to see that there's another Star Wars game in the competition. All right, next story. This one, I kind of knew it was happening, but I just...
Only reason I knew this was happening is for some reason it showed up on my Facebook feed like as sponsored events or something.
Okay. THQ Nordic is celebrating their 10th year anniversary. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that means Nordic is celebrating its 10th anniversary because I don't think they've been THQ Nordic for 10 years. Because THQ died 10 years ago, I want to say. So this is Nordic's 10-year anniversary. They announced a few games. Some stuff I think is kind of cool, but stuff that I probably will never play for the most part. But they announced Destroy All Humans 2, Reprobed, coming in 2022 for, interesting enough, it's only listed for PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and PC. It just seems like odd that this would just be a slam dunk, put it on every single platform, but that's what the trailer put on their tagline, or like the end bumper. So Destroy All Humans 2 makes total sense. They did a really good job with that first remake of Destroy All Humans, so might as well keep going. There's a new SpongeBob SquarePants game, Cosmic Shake, coming, and this one was listed to basically be coming to everything: PS4, PS5, Switch, PC, Xbox, all that stuff. Again, they did Rehydrated for that other SpongeBob game, Bikini. God, I forgot what the name. The Bikini Bottom one. That was really successful for them, so it makes sense that they would just make a new game. Where I think stuff gets really cool for what they did is they announced a sequel to Outcast. Outcast 2, A New Beginning. This is a sequel to the 1999 game Outcast that they remastered, I want to say like 4 years ago. This was a big game back in 1999 because it was one of the first open world third person action games. Like this was before GTA 3. So GTA 3 is often cited with like the game that led to like all the open world third person games, but Outcast actually came out a little bit before that, but it was only on PC, so it wasn't as known. So they are making a new game to it, so it's cool seeing a sequel 20 years later.
This one also says
roughly.
PS5 and Series S and X.
Yes, and there's no release
PC as well
on it. Yeah, but it's cool to see that they're doing that. The trailer looked okay. Like I don't see PS5, Xbox level of detail. So a lot of these games, I feel like they will end up being on like PS4 and the Xbox One. Then they announced Jagged Alliance 3. This is a sequel to Jagged Alliance 2, obviously. That came out in 1999, so they're doing another like super way out sort of thing with that. And then we have Superpower 3, which is a follow-up to Superpower 2, which released in 2004. So the reason I think these are kind of cool is THQ Nordic has been buying up all these IPs kind of on the cheap, relatively speaking, and we've been wondering what they're going to do with them instead of just remastered, and now they're basically giving like these cult classics new entries, which I don't think me and Dave will probably play any of these outside of maybe like Outcast 2, because I remember having to review the remaster a couple years ago. But to finally see them do something outside of just remasters for all these IPs they're buying is kind of cool.
Well, and I almost feel like they've done a pretty good job with, obviously the company went through craziness with everything being auctioned off, and then they brought it back, and then they were buying a whole bunch of stuff, and now it's like, okay, like you had mentioned, like what are they doing with it? Their data must show that there's some kind of market for this.
Yeah.
So
there has to be.
It's interesting. I wonder how much of this, again, could possibly be pandemic related, where a lot of people that maybe stepped away from gaming for a long time are back into it now, and you're starting to see a little bit more of an influx of, hey, what happened to this, and hey, what happened to this, and just because people are playing the games again or looking, getting a nostalgic feeling. But who knows? And it's also a great opportunity to, use, high-powered ish names to build and see if that there's legs for long-term franchises again too.
Yeah, they did the thing that we kind of were expecting them to do in terms of they used the remastered to test the water to see if there was enough interest in these franchises continuing, and it looks like that may be the case. Like these franchises may be able to continue. And then when you look at the trailers, it looks like they're not like going crazy AAA budget with any of these, but they're enough to just, hey, if you played the game in 1999 and wanted to see a sequel, this is going to look better than what sequel you would have gotten at the time. So like it looks modern enough. Whether this is going to work out for them, who knows? But at least they're trying this now before they completely like drain all their resources or their back catalog for remasters. So
yeah,
like,
and I guess it's just safe to find out too, like you said, if there's not a huge investment into it. And, if it fails, like I don't think this is going to be something that would cripple this company, No,
and even if it fails, at least we'll buy them goodwill from that fan base of just like, hey, you know what? They tried, they brought it back. They'll just go back to remasters if none of this works. And the video game industry has a lot of dead franchises, so THQ Nordic will just buy, more stuff that has gone dormant.
Do we know what studios are working on any of this, or is it everybody's just called THQ Nordic?
For the most part, I think everyone's called THQ Nordic. They have a ton of studios that aren't really like household names. So I'm sure we can dig around on some of their websites to pull some of these names. But for the most part, I believe they just kind of do THQ Nordic.
Okay.
Yeah. But THQ, they got a lot of shit last week because like the presentation wasn't amazing, but I don't feel like it needed to be amazing for the game announcements that they made. From what I saw, I know some people were disappointed, expecting more, but I don't know if
you expected more. I don't really think you know what THQ has.
No, exactly, yeah. Because I saw a lot of people like doing reaction videos to the showcase, being like, "Oh, this sucks." It's like, no, this is exactly what is in their wheelhouse. This is what they're capable of doing right now.
This has got a handful of games that are probably going to be average Metacritic review from a 65 to an 82. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, and that's totally fine. Like, for there to be like, you know what? That game's okay. Like, we all watch those TV shows. We all watch that stuff on Netflix where it's like, hey, should I watch this? Yeah, if you have free time, sure. Like,
yeah, like nothing that THQ announces, THQ Nordic, is gonna be like we sold 3 million copies thing.
Or we're gonna win Game of the Year. Like, it's just that's just not what that's not what they strive for. Like, they just low expense, not low production, but average production, profitable games. And it looks like this is what this is gonna be.
Yeah, like Outcast 2, I wouldn't be surprised if like they're like, hey, we sold 200,000 copies and we were profitable. Like, I don't expect them to pull a Square Enix and be like, shit, we sold 2 million copies, it didn't hit our expectations, and basically insult the game. I imagine a lot of these, the margin for profit isn't super like high, and like they're fine just as long as they hit profit, they can continue to work, as opposed to like we need to beat production tenfold sort of situation. But yeah, so that was THQ Nordic, and the last story is kind of cool. At least I think it's kind of cool. So Corey Barog basically came out and said that God of War Ragnarok is going to be the end of the current Kratos and Atreus North's saga. The primary thing it seems to be is they just don't want the story to drag on. Like, if they were to do a trilogy, we're talking about 15 years from first game to last game releasing, because development has kind of expanded so much to where it takes 4 to 5 years to release a game. So that seems like it was a primary focus for them to end this current saga on this game. Doesn't mean Kratos is going to disappear, but it means this specific father-son story will end in the next game. He did the interview with Captain Kuba on YouTube, if you want to see the full interview, there's like a lot of good insights on how they came to that decision. But I just wanted to get your thoughts, Dave, on the reason behind this, and if you think it's good in general.
I'm fine with it. It actually makes me want to play Ragnarok more, because typically, like, the second game in a trilogy usually tends to have like the most filler in it. It also tends to be the game that has the most fun to play, typically. I would argue like Uncharted 2 and 3 are more fun to play than 1 and 4. But, you know, obviously 1, you know, built the foundation for the story, and 4 was kind of tying a bow on it. It's kind of how I feel with the possibility with The Last of Us, which, you know, we're all assuming there's a Last of Us 3 coming. And if you look back, like, you know, like whether 3 is a continuation or a bow on a story, there was definitely some gameplay fatigue that was happening in 2, in my opinion. So these can be, you know, sort of that system. And then I also just would love to see what else Santa Monica can do. So I'm totally fine with this. So.
Yeah, this makes sense, especially when you look at it. We're talking about people that want to create and then tying themselves down for the next 15 years on one story. Sounds like
they've been working on God of War since 2015, 14.
Yeah, 2014, because they say roughly it takes 4 to 5 years to develop these games. So you're talking about like 15 years that they would have to just work on this one story that ideally they would have had the story planned out completely in 2014, you know, and then it just comes out to building the world and the game and all those elements, as opposed to, you know, them coming up, finish God of War 1 and be like, all right, let's figure out what the story's going to be. Like, they know most of the big story arc stuff probably several years ago.
Also, like God of War 2018, I feel like was bigger than like God of War 1 and 2 original combined. In terms of scope and story and time commitment. These aren't, you know, 8 to 12 hour. This, you know, God of War was an 8 to 12 hour game. I don't expect Ragnarok to be that either. I expect Ragnarok to be a 25 to 35 hour game, maybe 20 to 30.
Especially knowing it's not going to be a trilogy, like you would imagine. That like this one's going to be just a little bit longer than the first one, since they're closing everything. But I think that really does help out just the story in general. Just like trying to drag out the story. Or going through the process of this, like, you know, the creative directors might not want to be in Santa Monica in 10 years, you know? So they're deciding now, like, let's just finish this up while we still can and make something new.
Yeah, or they realize the story they want to tell just fits in 2 games, and they refuse to try to fill it, which is another huge kudos to them.
Yeah, if they decided, like, yeah, we could do a trilogy, but, like, the story doesn't need a trilogy. Especially when we are talking about 15 to 30-hour games. So I'm super happy with this. I don't know what this means for Kratos. I imagine this isn't the end of Kratos, because if the game that Corey's working on isn't successful, I assume Kratos comes back. And they just move on to another mythology at that point and fulfill like David Jaffe's original concept, where Kratos just goes from
we all know that like when like Sony essentially had to beg Cory Barlog to come back to work on God of War, and they took a pretty big risk, and Cory asked for a lot and he got it, and obviously it worked out. But I'm sure in that conversation was, all right, you know, if this is successful, I get to do what I want, you know. Like, and you know, it could be one of these things where this is what he wants. And obviously he's already kind of, I don't really think this is it exact, but he already kind of has one foot out the door from God of War, because he's not directing it. I mean, I'm sure he's involved in it. I'm sure he's involved in it. Like, he's like, they're not going to like change anything dramatically without talking to him about it. But he definitely is, you know, splitting his time, I'm sure.
Yeah. He will still have a writer and a producer credit on this game. He just isn't the everyday decision maker. But it's basically how the movie industry works for the most part. You hear a lot about directors doing the one for me, one for you deals with studios. Like Christopher Nolan didn't want to do the third Batman movie, but they gave him the ability to make Inception. So he was fine making the third Batman movie because he got to make Inceptions. So I wouldn't, I totally agree with that in terms of just like, he probably knew what he wanted to do, was willing to come back if they let him do something else based on the success of God of War. He gets to do that. They get to close the God of War story and not burn out the studio with just working on the one story for 15 years. And that's if everything goes well, or a new console generation doesn't slow them down on working. But I think this is great, and it's going to be fun to see. Just like, I agree 100% with you. I am now more interested in Ragnarok than I was before, and I was already interested in Ragnarok. But knowing now that it's going to end the story,
when you sit down to play it, and you hit X to start, and you watch the beginning cutscene, and by the time you're done playing this game, the Kratos Atreus story is going to be completed, is super intriguing now.
Yeah, and knowing that like whatever happens, even if there's a little teaser, that's going to be the end of it, at least for right now, until Kratos moves on to another like culture or like region, whatever they plan to do with him in the future.
Sir, the term is realm.
Realm. Okay. I'm excited to see where this ends up going now, and then we can see what Sony Santa Monica are up to, because right now they can't announce when they have Ragnarok coming out next year, because they don't want to like have some, not that they would be competing against themselves, but people will be then looking like, oh, that's Corey's game, who cares about Ragnarok, sort of thing. So this will be done, and then they can focus on their next game or continuing the Kratos story in the future. That's it for news, though. Pretty light week.
All right. So far, nothing's been delayed. Because we talked about Battlefield, right?
Oh, we didn't actually.
Okay,
that happened after we recorded.
Okay.
So
what did that get delayed? Like 12 days?
Yeah. Was it a week or two?
I think it's now November 19th, and I feel like it might have been like November 8th or something. Like it was still November. I thought was it, or maybe I'm wrong, but it was a minor delay, like super minor. So that did get delayed. So I'm also trying to fill. And speaking of filler, while Michael's looking it up, but that doesn't bother me at all. It's still coming out before Thanksgiving. It'll still probably be on some kind of, even though it just came out, it'll probably still be on some kind of promotion for Black Friday, I would assume. Trying to get some more player base into there, but it's fine. Like it's kind of
October 22nd. Is the original release date. Then it got delayed to November 12th. What makes it weird is they were doing like 7-day early access for certain people. So November 12th
is the early access day.
Early access thing, yeah.
Okay, so then the official date is November 19th, right?
Yes.
So then does that mean that the official original date was the 29th of October?
The original date was October 22nd, and then October 15th was the early access.
Oh, okay. So, all right, like a month. So it's a little bit more significant than I thought. But all right, so what we're playing and watching. Mine is very short. I'll use what I primarily played towards the end because I think it'll transition to what Michael's been playing. But I did a lot of adulting this week, trying to get myself back on a daytime schedule, going back to my store and working days again, as well as we did some finagling with our finances and changed some stuff around with the house. And so we bought, we did a lot of shopping on Saturday for like new stove and new fridge and new dishwasher. And now we're mattress shopping, which is not fun at all. It's fun, but then it's like, the prices and the salespeople. And with me being in retail, I could tell you within the first 10 or 15 seconds if I'm going to have any kind of rapport or clicking with somebody. And if I don't, I get very annoyed very quickly. And I'm like, all right, we're going to go. So
I can see that.
I'm just like, we're done. So
I've seen you at E3 when something just completely loses your interest and you're just like, I want to go home.
So I try to be polite about it. I also try to be somebody that's very direct at what I want, and I get annoyed if you don't listen to what I want, and I also get very annoyed if you don't listen to my wife. Like very, very annoyed. Like she's the queen decision maker in the first place, because especially like from a stove standpoint, like I'm not doing it. I barely do any cooking. So it's 100% what she wants. I might have a say in a couple of things, but not usually much. So you definitely need to listen to her. And not a lot of people like to listen to women.
Weird. Working in like tech, you notice that a lot. Where you're just like, oh my god, why are you being sexist? But,
right.
yeah.
So, but yeah, we did a lot of that, and then I watched like we caught up on some Ted Lasso. That last episode, if you're caught up to date, the last episode about Coach Beard was a little weird, but it seems to be par for the course for like these Apple shows to always have this one episode. You're like, why does that exist? It doesn't make it like terrible, but it was kind of cool to learn more about him. But at the same time, it was just completely off kilter from what the show had been doing. But that's fine. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I watched a lot of football with football being back. Not doing too good in my fantasy league, so thankfully I didn't start one for DDG because that would have probably annoyed me even more. And then played a lot of Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which I think you did as well. You played a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, it's a PS4 and a PS5 game. I think it's one of the best looking PS5 games I've seen.
It's definitely up there. I think the cutscenes are gorgeous looking, but they're almost too good for what the actual gameplay looks like. But it's still a gorgeous looking game. Yeah. But yeah,
I don't think you've gotten to the part where I've gotten to, where there's a part where they zoom in really close on her hand while she's doing something. And the detail is just amazing. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what this...
Was it a cutscene or was it an actual gameplay?
It was a cutscene. Yeah.
Yeah, the cutscene stuff is fucking amazing. Yeah. Like, I would love to see just a movie or show done like rendered like those cutscenes.
And it, like, the combat, the dodging and the fighting with the staff, like, it flows really well. Like, it's just I know you hinted before we recorded that you might be having some camera issues.
Yeah, just some weird jittering stuff. Nothing too bad, but just typical like third-person platformer issues you have. Not that this is necessarily a platformer early on, but just weird camera moving just a little too slow or jittering. Okay. I'm playing it PS5, but overall, like I love the combat.
Yeah, I'm getting some Uncharted vibes from it in terms of like the traversal and how you move around.
Yeah, they definitely do the highlighted rock thing.
Well, yeah, and then like there's a lot of climbing and the way like as you turn a corner, it like the camera spans away and it shows off the world. Like where you're exploring, and I'm super intrigued by it. Like I said, the combat seems to feel really, really good right now. I still am struggling a little bit with some of the healing, and I know that this is probably just me, as I get older, like the tutorial screens, the text is too damn small.
So I don't have a problem with the tutorial screen being too small. I have a problem with the tutorial videos being jittery or like really low frame rate.
Oh, I guess I don't look at the video. I read the words and then I just move on. So I usually just tend to learn more by doing, and I like as they've added more mechanics to the game, they've done a pretty good job of like kind of showing you how to do them. I don't like the I guess are they called are they called roots? Rots?
I think I've heard them say rot.
Okay.
Which I was expecting it not to be rot, but when you talk to the old man that gives you a mask.
Yeah, like the rots really take to you or something like that, Yeah. They're amazingly cool looking. I would love to have like a plushie of this in my house, for the record.
Have you put the hats on them yet?
Yes, I have. I don't know what they do, but I have.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it lets you put the hats on them individually, so it's not just one hat for all of them. You're putting hats on them individually. I really love everything about the art style.
Yeah, it's cool looking. I hope that like down the road, like the hats maybe mean something. But if they're also cosmetic, as long as they stay 100% cosmetic, I'm fine. I don't want to see both of like, oh, this looks really cool, but it does nothing. This one looks really ugly, but it's super powerful. Like, I don't want that to happen. But just like the dialogue between the Kenna and some of the characters has been fascinating. The like the spirit stuff that they're showing is super interesting. I can't believe this is a $40 game.
This kind of hurts PlayStation being like, games are $70 when you see this at $40, and you're just like, hey, if this is a 12 to 20 hour game, and it's $40. I'm like super impressed.
Yeah, I definitely want to
that.
see where the story's going, but I'm definitely one of those, like, I was kind of like right before we were recording, I was trying to finish something. I'm like, I'm almost done. I'm like, crap, it's 5:32. I gotta go. It's like, it's definitely wanting to keep playing and keep learning and keep adjusting. So I'm enjoying it very, very much. If you're on the fence, financially about a game, right off the bat, like, I think this is easily $40 well spent. Slam dunk.
Yeah, I believe it's only digital right now. It's going to get a physical edition, I think, in November, December, I believe. So I think this is worth picking up day one for $40 so far. Again, we're only both, Dave might be an hour or two ahead of me.
Yeah.
But early on, I was reading the reviews yesterday, and a lot of people were comparing it to like PS2 games or N64 in terms of like that type of like third person like platformer type game. And I think I said it during the Psychonauts too. It's crazy that we in 2021 we got like a new Ratchet and Clank game that was great, a Psychonauts 2 game that was great, and then we could get a game that's new, but it's kind of a throwback to that PS2 N64 era for like third person platformers.
Yeah. This just shows you that a game does not have to be like look realistic, like photorealistic, to be fun to play and to have a cool, compelling story. Like,
yeah, or you don't need, like there's combat in it, but you don't need a game with a gun. You can have a really entertaining game. Are you playing it with like Owen watching or anything like that? Because I'd be curious to see. 'Cause, like, I would imagine a little kid would love.
He came into the room and saw it and asked what it was, and then immediately goes like, "Oh, when can I play?" And I'm like, "Okay, there might be a little challenge for it." But he definitely did one of the things where he kind of like walked by the TV. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when he walked by the TV and sees me playing Destiny, he's like everybody else. He kind of just like, whatever. Sometimes he'll sit and watch, sometimes he won't. He keeps asking me why I haven't played any more Skyward Sword. I'm just kind of fatigued on it. But when he came home from school today and I was playing it, and he's like, "What's this?" Like he's asking some questions. So he's definitely. I'll have to see if there's, like I know there's an easier difficulty. I just picked the standard one, the default one. So I'll have to see what that.
I think it's called story mode.
Yeah.
I dabbled with that just a little bit. It is easier because the enemies they're not as aggressive.
Yeah, I like the fact, and I don't like the fact of that at the very beginning, I don't feel like the story is like super handheld for you. I definitely, as I'm playing through, like as the story has been progressing in my mind, I have more questions about what's going on versus, a 7-minute cutscene where like, once upon a time, this character's father died and blah 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 blah. That's not there at all, and it's just like, okay, here you go play, and I'm like, well, wait, what?
I appreciate that just because they at least early on, it seemed like they break into the cutscenes pretty fast. Though I will say the transition to cutscenes sometimes is just like a little jarring because like I've had the screen just like black flat, like just like a flash of black, and then it goes into.
I feel like you might have a bad download then because I haven't experienced that at all.
It's not super noticeable, but I think I'm just so used to games doing like that, and from like gameplay to cutscenes a little smoother than this game does. Yeah. But they can't do it because there's such a difference in visuals from their cutscenes to the gameplay. So because their cutscenes are pre-rendered, they're not in engine by any means, so they have to transition out to it, and that's a little bit more jarring to me as someone who's been playing a bunch of games like Ratchet and Clank. There's barely a difference between gameplay and cutscene, and Psychonauts the same thing. But that's a minor gripe. That's just me being used to how other games do this.
Yeah.
But I will say, when you first open up the village area, and you just see all these different paths you can go down, and then you see. Basically, for the game, you're basically clearing out like poison that is like messed up, like nature and
corruption
like, has taken over some of the village, and just seeing like different. I spent like good 10-20 minutes just looking around, be like, okay, how do I get to this thing? Because it's here.
I'm definitely getting some Ori vibes from it too.
Mm-hmm.
And the colors and the music are just amazing. Like when you clear out a corruption, and then like the tree sprouts out of the ground, like how fast that goes, like, and then like how the music is tied to it, and it just becomes from this like red and black area to this green and pink and purple area. It's cool. My wife's even looked up a couple times. She goes, "Wow, She's like, that's really cool looking.
Yeah, I get like flower vibes from it.
Yeah.
I loved, just the couple times where I'm like, how do I get there? And then I progress a little bit in the story, and then I open up a different path, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Just when you find out about like, there's like mailboxes that'll have a message, and I didn't know what those meant until I accidentally came across and I solved one of those mailboxes.
I haven't even ran into a mailbox yet. So.
There, basically, if you see a house, there's usually a mailbox outside of it, and then you can read the mailbox.
Yeah, the targeting system could use a little bit of work, but I mean, overall, I'm okay with it. I don't want to I don't want to I don't want to vibe too much positive about this game or too much negative, because I'm not. I guess if it is as long as people say it is, I'm like 20% in, maybe. So
yeah.
But it's definitely it's something I could totally see myself streaming with you guys. I wanted to play it today to talk about it, just because I really hadn't played much this week, so I purposely wanted to play it. But I do have a lot of work to do at home because I'm decluttering the house, and I rented this dumpster, and I got to fill it up before it leaves.
Well, it's like reading reviews. There are some people saying that some of the puzzles are a little obtuse, and I guess that would be an example of the mailboxes. Is early on you pass a mailbox, and then it just gives you 2 lines, and it's not even telling you this is a quest. It's just being like, oh, I wish this thing would be back, or I wish I didn't leave this at this other location. And you're just like, that's weird, I don't know what that means. And then you walk into a location, and then you find something to interact with, and it's just like,
and see, now I think I found something that belongs to somebody, which is probably tied to a letter, but I just found it before I found the letter.
And that's going to happen in this sort of game, which is kind of the throwback vibe, because that would happen back then all the time.
And the only reason I found it is because I went the wrong I didn't go the wrong direction. I went around this area that I thought I had to go, and I found this hidden area. I'm like, I can't go any farther, and I went back, and I realized, I went to the right, and I should have gone up and to the left. And, and then when I went up and to the left, I could see access to the area that I was just in, and I was like, I have no idea what it's for, but I'm sure it'll have a little interesting dialogue piece when I do find it. So,
yeah, and I love that aspect of it. It definitely does feel like a throwback from that time period that we would get a game like this.
Angela also thinks one of the kid voice actors sounds like Owen.
That's funny.
She got distracted.
The 2 little kids looking for the brother. Okay.
She got distracted once. She's like, "What?" I was like, "He's in the other room." She's like, "I just heard him out here." I was like, she said. Then she heard one of the kids talking. She's like, "That's what I heard." She's like.
Yeah, but yeah, I obviously have been playing Kenna, and then my other time has been going to Deathloop, which I realize I am playing Deathloop the non-normal way, that it means I'm going to be playing it for a very long time, as opposed to progressing the story. I really think Arcane did a good job of making this world that's fun to explore, and actually using all the different mechanics to explore. So I've been doing a thing where I've been going on runs where I have no fucking intention to assassinate one of the 8 people. Where I'm like, I just want to explore the world and see how it changes as time changes. Because the areas change, the people that are in the areas change based on the time of day you enter that area.
Okay.
So you might see people in the daytime that are getting ready to party, but then if you visit at night, they'll be drunk, and they'll be in different paths. They'll be in different buildings. Different buildings are open at different times of day. So that opens up another potential thing for you to discover and mess with. So I've been having a lot of fun just being like, I'm just going to explore. I don't care if I get killed or if a visionary.
You're playing Deathloop for people watching.
Kinda, yeah. Just because I'm fascinated with the world that they
great.
have. Yeah, especially, it's weird. So I don't really give a shit about the whole, we got to end this loop.
Yeah.
I'm more fascinated by, how they got there. And then this game.
You're more fascinated by the death part, less fascinated by the loop part.
Pretty much, yeah. Where it's a fascinating world. I love all the little details that they've added to it. And I really like the mechanics. I yesterday spent an hour walking around with a turret that I deactivated.
Okay.
And then putting it in different areas.
Oh, the thing you can turn into a suitcase or whatever?
Yeah. So I spent an hour just walking around Updam, just killing everyone in that area by just placing it, setting it up, and then throwing a bottle so I can get them to come in its range.
What's that noise?
And
Turn
then,
the corner.
yeah, basically. And I every time I would finish up, I would close off an area of like eliminating everybody, and then I'll just pick up the suitcase and be like, all right, let me go listen for more voices.
So let me ask you, because I don't know, because I don't even think I've even dabbled with it at all, other than slightly when it was a PS Plus title. How much does this feel like Dishonored?
Mechanic wise, it feels very similar.
Because it's making me want to play Dishonored then.
Yeah, no, it definitely has that gameplay vibe of Dishonored, just how like the AI works. But Dishonored didn't really have guns.
Right. No. Yeah, I get that part, but I meant like the movement and the stealth mechanic. Like it's interesting to me. Now, full disclosure, again, I haven't watched it yet, but a YouTuber that I follow, he's done like a full like break the loop run, and this is what I was curious about. I think once you figure out exactly like where you're supposed to go and when you're supposed to go within the however X amount of steps you're supposed to take to break the loop, it looks like it's like an hour to do a playthrough. Super cool to me. Like,
yeah, because as you're playing it and you're reading notes and you're overhearing people talking, like that's a thing that I didn't realize is you'll get information that you can put in your dossier just based on like, oh, I passed these two NPCs talking and they gave a little bit of information. For the first like 2 hours I was playing, I was like, oh, okay, I read this note, or I listened to this recording, and this gave me more info. But no, the NPCs will be talking about the visionaries, and that will give you more information.
That's
and then
super
you'll find
cool.
out.
That is so cool to me. So.
Yeah, and you'll find out just different information of just like, oh, Harriet will be here during the day, but sometimes she's here at night, and then you're just like, oh, so if I line this up right and eliminate specific visionaries, there might be a chance where I can get 3 of them in one area in one quick thing. So where I'm assuming I can set up that perfect run to get it in an hour if I just like figure out all of their little habits that they're constantly repeat each day, and just being like, okay, if I eliminate this one person, this will affect everything else the rest of the day, and I might be able to get the visionaries to change their schedules enough based on who I eliminated already. Yeah. And I love that possibility of what you can do with there. And right now I just feel like I'm playing as just gathering as much information as possible, so then I can do a perfect run. Because
Michael's gonna walk into the room and he's gonna put so many chess pieces in place that he's gonna have all 8 of them in the room at the same time. He's just gonna blow the building up, and the game's gonna be like flawless completion. So, like...
Yeah, no, and I hope there's a possibility to where you can get a bunch of them out at one time. And it's funny, I'm not even like dabbling with like, because I'm ignoring the visionaries, I don't really have any powers. You get powers, but I am at the point where it's just like, there have been times where I see the visionary pass by and I'm like, I could kill them right now. But I'm just like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do this yet.
I'm more interested in where they're going to be at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 8 o'clock than I am in killing them at 4 o'clock. Like...
Yeah. When I went to go get Harriet and I saw her doing her like weird ceremony, I was just like, I could go guns blazing, but let me go walk around a little bit more and see what else is happening.
That's super cool.
So I'm definitely playing Deathloop my own way, but I'm enjoying it.
Awesome.
Fully. But that's kind of all I've been doing for playing and watching. It's just been Deathloop, Kenna, and then Ted Lasso. I started season 2, so I'm like season 2, episode 3.
Okay. You're almost
I've
caught
been
up.
off, so yeah, I've been off the last couple of days, so it's just easy to just.
Do you like it?
So I still don't really like Ted.
Okay.
I enjoy the show, but it's just basically anytime Ted's on the screen, I'm just like, Can we go back to Roy or Rebecca or Kaylee? So I'm enjoying it for the most part.
I just want the record to show that I recommended a show that Michael has continued to watch. That's all I really wanted.
To be fair, everyone's been recommending the show to the point to where the show was getting a bad taste because of how many people are like, you need to watch this. It's why I don't watch The Wire. Just because everyone just tells me to watch The Wire. Yeah.
But there's no, like, I guess the biggest thing that I like about it is there's, like, I'm always interested to see what's going on, but there's no, like, emotional attachment. There's no, like, I don't really feel like I get super tense watching the show or super sad watching the show or anything like that. It's just always just like, okay, like, that was good.
Yeah, and season 1, like I remember I kept saying, I'm like, there's no darkness in season 1. In season 2, they actually start making a villain with Nate, which is a nice character arc to see his personality change over time, to where I like that they added depth to him. I still don't feel like there's enough depth to Ted Lasso specifically, but there is definitely a lot of emotional stuff happening with the other characters for the most part.
I meant like, yeah, there's emotional stuff happening with the characters, but it's not affecting me. I'm just more interested in what's going on. Like like none of the episodes feel heavy.
Yeah, I would admit there's nothing too heavy. Like, I'm not thinking about Ted Lasso once I stop watching Ted Lasso.
Okay.
If that's
Exactly.
What you mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I definitely care about the characters. I see Angela in the chat saying there's emotional attachment. I care about, like, Roy Kent is one of my favorite characters in recent memory, but I'm not thinking about Roy Kent after watching.
I love the
Ted
relationship
Lasso.
between Roy Kent and his niece. Like that's great. So like it's it's good. It's a really good show. So all right. So that's it for you. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be a shorter show, so not a big deal at all. So real quick, so questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can send them. Discord has its own channel in there. And then you can send them on Facebook or on Twitter. My wife's asking what's wrong with both of us. That's why I'm laughing. So Stefan Wren writes, question for Dave. How did you get your kids into video games, and what age did you start? So Owen has been playing video games in almost any kind of form of capacity since he could mess with a phone or an iPad. He did a lot of like coloring games, a lot of matching games. I think technology is super, advanced now compared to even, like my older kids, in the early 2000s. Started introducing him to, he just kind of played, just would ask something or see something, and I'd let him mess with the controller a little bit. He plays a lot on the Switch. And then Jonathan, Zoe doesn't play video games at all, and she can't. Like, she would just, anything that she would start to play, she would just die. So she just, it's not her thing at all. And Jonathan was probably 7 or 8. He's super into sports games, even to the to this day. He loves like Madden and MLB The Show, and NBA 2K. He loves a lot of that My Player stuff. And he also he plays shooters more just to mess around with his friends. He does a lot of that Rainbow Six, Call of Duty, private match thing, like melee only. He's just goofing around with his buddies in a game. That's really what he does. I do have a vivid memory of him trying to decide between Battlefield and Call of Duty when he was like somewhere between 10 and 12. And I was like, okay, here you go. Here's like Game Informer and IGN. Here's all these reviews. Like, read them, see what you like, see what you don't like. And then you can make your decision. And he picked Battlefield over Call of Duty that year. I want to say this might have been Battlefield 3. And he booted the game up. We bought it for him for his birthday. It was November. His birthday's in November, and Battlefield's and Call of Duty's always come out in November. And like within the first like 30 seconds of the game, there was a bunch of cussing, and my wife was like, "What is he playing?" And I'm like, walked into the living room and gave him a pair of headphones. I'm like, "Here, you have to wear these." And to this day, he still hates headphones. Like, he does not like to play video games with headphones at all. Which, feel bad for his fiance. So that's all I'll say about that.
It just reminds me of this you guys hearing the cussing from the game and being like, "Uh-oh." It just reminds me of just like when
I didn't care.
No, I know. It just reminds me of just like my little sister playing Grand Theft Auto like 3 in Vice City, and when she was like 7 or 8.
Let's go get the hookers and blow.
No, but like my mom being like, "Oh, what is she playing? Is it a driving game?" Because my little sister would actually follow the lights, like the traffic lights, and then at one point she is driving, or someone shot at her, she's freaking out, and she's like, "Oh, I need health," and then she picked up a hooker, got her health back, and then she's like, "Oh, if you run them over, you get your money back," but she had no idea what the hell was happening in the game during it. My mom being like, "What the hell is she playing?" And it's like, just a driving game.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna guess a little bit here, Stefan. The root of your question is I know you have a young child, and I think that you just this is the same thing I tell everybody, and a lot of people ask me this like out and about and in our social gatherings as well too, because like I'm the one like that they figure out like I play video games and they're like oh like and they'll ask me stuff about games all the time, which is totally fine. You just need to know your kid, like in terms of what they can or can't handle. You need to, and the only way you find out is by trying. So like putting something on an easy difficulty level, again, like this is me, like you have to know your kid, like I said, in terms of what they can or can't be exposed to. I have a nephew that at the same age as Jonathan was, like there's no chance that I could expose him to a shooter game like that, like Call of Duty or Battlefield, like because he would spend every waking moment of his life intimidating what he saw in that game because that's just how he functions. Jonathan didn't function that way. He was able to like, and he's still to this day, like he separates like that's entertainment, this is real life. Like he's got a very vivid line of what happens. And so I think that you need to try. Like again, when I was really young, I got to watch like Terminator or Commando as a really young kid. My dad, right, wrong, or indifferent, allowed me to watch it, and it didn't, I don't think it messed with me too much. But I just think that you kind of have to see. And if you do something, if you give them a little bit of time and then, like 2 days later, they're still like reenacting something they did in there, maybe they're not ready. I don't think that I'm not the kind of parent that because a movie's PG-13, I'm not going to take my 9-year-old to it. Like that's not how I work. So I don't know if that's a little bit of a ramble, but I think you just kind of have to know how your kid reacts. So, and then Ben Palmer writes, who's getting an SSD for the M2 slot for your PS5? If so, what make, and model, and capacity? I would love to get one because I'm kind of tired of messing with space on the hard drive. Not that it's a terrible thing right now, but I'm still waiting to see some more research. Somebody, Hussein just posted in our Facebook group a cool video from Digital Foundry. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but kind of showed like the lowest end drive and how it functions and what it does or doesn't do. So it'll be super interesting to see how that's working. The firmware went live last week, so everybody kind of has access to it. And we'll have to see. I'm just kind of waiting and hopefully to see all the pricing kind of like settle itself out. That's kind of what I'm waiting for. I just want something in the middle. I want something that's got good space, good speed, and a good value.
Yeah, ever since they've unlocked like cold storage for PS5 games, I've actually been kind of okay bouncing between the internal drive and then my external SSD that I'm using. I basically just grabbed the 1 terabyte SSD that I had lying around, put an enclosure on it, and use that. And I've been pretty okay with that. And then also, because I've just been using my PS5 for exclusives, it's not really affected me too much, especially the exclusives for the most part. Once I beat it or get the platinum, I have no problem deleting it for now. So I've been able to like really manage my space with that external drive. So I don't know if I'm going to get an SSD right away. I say that, but then as soon as there's going to be a sale for one of them, because right now they're still kind of like overpriced in my opinion. It's like 1 terabyte's like $200. And I don't know if getting a 500 gig one would be worth it
right
at that point.
And I almost feel like if I'm going to spend $200 or $250 on a hard drive extension, I'll just buy another console. Like that's kind of like where I'm like maybe I'll have a console for my games as a service and a console for I know that sounds crazy, but I don't like there's people that I know over the last couple of years that have like an 8 terabyte drive in their PS4 and they're like, oh, I got to make space. I'm like, why the hell do you need access to 47 games? Like, why?
That's how I was on the PS4, but with the PS5, even though I'm playing PS4 games often on my PS5, I've just gotten better at this. Like, okay, if I download all the games, I'm going to put myself in a situation where I'm like, shit, I don't know if I'm going to play this, and then I don't play any games.
Yeah, it's more purposeful for me. Like, oh, I'm going to download Horizon, which means I'm going to play it, versus like, oh, it's already on the drive, I'll play it later. Like, oh, I'm going to download Days Gone or download Detroit or download whatever, and then I'm going to play it. And then when I'm done playing it, I'm going to delete it.
Yeah, and that's basically what I'm going to do, where with or what I have been doing for the PS5, where it's like if there's a game I'm interested in, I'm just download it, and not give myself the chance to put 4 other games on it to where I'm going to be stuck. We're like, oh, I don't know which one to play. It's just like, no, whichever one's downloaded is the one I'm going to play. Like, I deleted Ratchet in Clank because I got the platinum. I'm not going to play it again after getting the platinum, or at least not anytime soon. Like, when we get towards the end of this console generation is when I'm going to want to download all of my games onto a theme.
Yeah, so or if they bring out another Ratchet, I might be like, hey, you know what? I need a refresher again. Like, let me go see what's going on in the story. You know, like, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I only want all my stuff downloaded when it's towards the end of that console generation, and then I get that paranoia of like, well, they might close the store one day.
And by then, these NVM drives better be like $100. Like,
yeah, the good ones.
Yeah, so,
better be.
It's just not something I'm in a super hurry for. I was worried about it, but you know, like it's just kind of like it feels like it's more on purpose gaming. It's what I've been talking about, like with my love hate with Game Pass. Like it's just everything's there, so I'm just like, okay, cool, I'll play it whenever, and you know, and I'm not. So it's like
I'm actually more interested in getting the expanded storage for my Xbox than I am on my PlayStation right now. But that's only because Game Pass puts me in that stupid situation where I'm like, I'm going to download 20 of these games and then I play none of them. But I still want them downloaded for some reason. So when I load up Game Pass, I'm like, shit, there's 3 games I downloaded that aren't on Game Pass anymore.
Oh gosh. So,
for the PS5, I'm fine juggling right now. I'm still looking for a second one, but that's just because we need 2 PS5s right now.
Because he needs one for Final Fantasy 14 and one for everything else.
Basically.
All right. So yeah, again, you can always send us questions using hashtag AskDigitalDays. A little bit of a shorter show. We don't really have any spotlights. The Everworld interview is still there. The Far Cry impressions are there, as that game's coming out in like 2 weeks. The Halo technical test is happening this weekend. The Halo Infinite multiplayer technical test. I got an email invite for that this week, so I will definitely try to check that out. I might try to stream that depending on schedule and stuff. I'm not sure. A couple people asked too, like I just don't have any desire to check out the new Call of Duty. Like it's just not my thing. So I didn't mess with the betas at all. But you can also follow us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael at the first MJC. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Facebook group, Discord server, website is all linked in the show notes. So check that out. Patreon's down there as well. Patreon.com/DigitalDaysGaming. And you know, where we have $1 tip jar, $3 Discord access, $5 gets you 24-hour early access to the podcast, to the numbered shows. So those are the tiers that are there. We need to do a better job of the monthly episodes. We're getting really far behind, and we're bad at that. So, apologies.
I think we're going to record one this week since we're probably recording Sunday. We'll probably have some time to record one.
So we'll figure something out with that. So, but yeah, other than that, any support that you've been able to give is super helpful. Reviewing the show, sharing the show with other people, reviewing the show with words and stars is always super helpful, especially as we get near episode 100. And maybe when people come across us on the search feed, they'll be like, okay, these guys have been around for a while. Maybe it's worth checking out versus I don't want to like commit to a podcast that's like only posts like once every 4 months. So, you know, like there's definitely or is only posted 4 episodes, you know, is on episode 4, or 6 or 8 or 12, like just a short number. Like now when we get into triple digits, it's always like, okay, these guys are here for a long haul and they've consistently every 7 days released an episode. So maybe some more people will check us out. So sharing is super, super helpful. So, other than that, I don't have anything else. You got anything, Michael?
Nope. Just hopefully we'll have an episode next week.
Yeah, we will. So.
Or just have Josh record something. Just have him just.
Discs are cool, okay?
Yeah.
All right. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.